Vivian stood alone outside the graduation hall at exactly 7 p.m., wearing her cap and gown while clutching her phone with trembling hands. 17 unanswered calls stared back at her like cold reminders of reality. The empty parking lot looked like a field of broken promises. When she finally opened the group chat she had been quietly excluded from, her breath caught in her throat. Her mother's message appeared at the bottom. "She won't even notice we're gone. Vivian is too self-absorbed anyway." The words cut through her heart as her valedictorian speech papers scattered in the wind around her. The drive home felt unreal to her, as if she were traveling through a long gray tunnel where disbelief echoed in every direction. Each red light forced her to relive another detail of the day. 4 years of late nights in the library, endless assignments, sacrificed weekends, and a perfect 4.0 grade point average. Everything had led to this moment that her family simply threw away in exchange for a backyard barbecue. When she pulled into her family's driveway in Wilmington, Delaware, the darkness of the house greeted her like an unwelcome truth. Only the porch light glowed, lonely and hollow. Vivian stepped inside slowly. "Oh, anyone home?" she called, but her voice echoed without an answer. The living room showed signs of a rushed departure. Throw pillows tossed aside, the television still running, and dirty dishes stacked near the sink. The kitchen trash held aluminum trays from store-bought side dishes prepared for the barbecue. On the counter she found a crumpled note in her mother's handwriting. "Don't forget the ice cream for Jenny's kids." Even in her shock, Vivian felt the sting of the irony. Her mother remembered ice cream for a cousin's children but not her own daughter's graduation. At 10:30 p.m., car doors slammed outside. Vivian sat curled on the living room chair, still wearing her graduation gown. Laughter filled the driveway, bright, cheerful, and painfully out of place. Her father's booming voice entered first. "Jessica, you should have seen Jenny's face when her boy jumped into the pool fully clothed." As the family stepped inside carrying leftover containers, the laughter died when they saw Vivian sitting in the dark. Her mother's smile faded. "Oh, you're home already. How was the thing?" Vivian stood slowly. "The thing? My college graduation, the one you promised to attend 6 months ago." Her father dropped the cooler with an impatient sigh. "Vivian, it's just a ceremony. You already have the degree. Sitting for hours to hear names isn't life-changing." Vivian shook her head. "You marked it on the calendar. You said you'd be there." Her sister Megan rolled her eyes and kicked off her sandals. "Why must everything be about you? Jenny really wanted everyone at her barbecue. It's not like your graduation was a surprise. You've been talking about it forever." Vivian's voice tightened. "Because it mattered to me." Yet her mother simply unpacked food, refusing even to meet her eyes. Vivian felt her chest tighten as her mother continued unpacking the barbecue leftovers, acting as though the day had been ordinary. "Honey, you know how much Jenny has been struggling since she left school," her mother said calmly. "This barbecue was her chance to feel good again. Your graduation would have just made her feel worse." Vivian stared at her, stunned. "So you protected Jenny's feelings instead of celebrating my achievement?" Megan scoffed. "It's called being considerate. Something you might want to try sometime." Vivian turned toward her brother Nathan, but he stared silently at his phone, avoiding her eyes completely. "I worked for 4 years, Vivian said, her voice quivering. "Scholarships, dean's list every semester, late nights, sacrifices, and you think showing up would be an inconvenience?" Her father loosened his tie and settled into the recliner with a sigh. "Vivian, you're being dramatic. We celebrated when you got accepted to college. We celebrated when you made the dean's list. How many celebrations do you need?" Vivian blinked, stunned by his tone. "Dad, this is my college graduation. It happens once in a lifetime." Her mother shrugged. "So does a Memorial Day barbecue when everyone's free. We had to choose." Vivian stared at her family, realizing the truth she had been avoiding for years. "And you chose Jenny," she whispered. Megan didn't look up from her phone. "We chose loyalty over ego." Vivian's jaw tightened. But before she could respond, something caught her attention. A corner of a fancy envelope partially hidden under a pile of mail. She pulled it free and froze when she recognized the handwriting. It was from her grandparents in Florida. "What's this?" she asked. Her mother's face turned pale. "Oh, that came a few days ago." Vivian opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a check for $200 made out to her parents, along with a handwritten note. We wish we could attend Vivian's graduation. Here is some travel money. Please give her our love and tell her we're proud of her on her special day. Vivian's heart dropped. They sent you money to come to my graduation? Her father crossed his arms. We didn't ask for it. But you kept it, Vivian whispered. Silence filled the room. Her mother said, It's almost 11 p.m. Don't call them now, they're asleep. Vivian shook her head. They stayed up waiting for a call that never came. The weight of betrayal pressed down on her, but the next morning the pain felt even heavier. Vivian walked into the kitchen to find her mother humming softly as she brewed coffee, behaving as if nothing had happened. Good morning, sweetheart, her mother said casually. There's fresh coffee if you want some. Vivian sat at the table, the same table where she had spent years doing homework. Mom, I've been thinking about yesterday. Her mother sighed. Let's not dwell on that. What's done is done. Vivian stared at her. You wouldn't know how it went because you never showed up. Her mother set her mug down, irritation flashing in her eyes. Vivian, I've been patient with your dramatic reaction, but this tantrum needs to stop. You're a college graduate now. Start acting like one. Vivian blinked at her. A tantrum? You skipping my graduation is not a small misunderstanding. It's a betrayal. Megan entered the kitchen yawning loudly. Are you seriously still talking about that? She asked, grabbing a yogurt. I thought you'd be over it by now. Vivian stared at her. How long does it take to get over being abandoned on the most important day of your life? Megan rolled her eyes. Look, let's just be honest. We didn't go because we're tired of everything being about you. Vivian this, Vivian that. You get praised for every tiny achievement and the rest of us fade into the background. We just wanted one day where things weren't centered on you. Vivian felt the words hit like cold water. So you punished me for working hard? Her mother nodded. Sometimes you dominate conversations with your accomplishments, honey. It makes other people feel overshadowed. Vivian sat still, realizing her family resented her success instead of celebrating it. The days that followed only added more pain. Vivian overheard her mother speaking to their neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, twisting the story completely. Oh yes, we were at the ceremony, Patricia said lightly. We just had to leave early for a family obligation. Vivian misunderstood. Vivian stepped into the room. You lied, she said quietly. Her mother shrugged. I said we were there for the important part. The important part is that you graduated. Vivian stared at her. You weren't there for any part. But her mother simply waved her hand. Vivian, you're exaggerating again. You always make things bigger than they are. Needing space, Vivian went to clean out her childhood bedroom. While searching the attic for boxes, she noticed a cardboard container labeled Vivian, school stuff in her mother's handwriting. She opened it and froze. Inside were years of academic awards and certificates she had never seen displayed. Her principal's award, science fair ribbons, honor roll certificates, perfect attendance medals, even scholarship letters. All hidden. All buried. At the bottom lay a sealed envelope. She opened it and felt her stomach drop. It was a letter recommending her for a full scholarship to Harvard, the letter she had never been told existed. Vivian carried the box downstairs and found her mother folding laundry. What is this? She demanded, setting the box down. Patricia glanced inside casually. Old school papers. I saved them for you. Saved them? You hid them. Why weren't any of these ever displayed? And why didn't you show me the Harvard letter? Her mother sighed. Harvard was too far, too expensive, too pretentious. You already had a good offer from the University of Delaware. I didn't want you making a mistake. Vivian stared at her. You kept me from applying because you thought it was pretentious? Patricia crossed her arms. I kept you grounded. If you went far away, you'd fill your head with ideas about being better than everyone else. Vivian felt the realization settle like a stone. This wasn't an accident. This was a pattern. You wanted to keep me small, she whispered. That evening she overheard her mother again, this time speaking to her aunt on the phone. I think Vivian's under too much pressure, Patricia said. She's imagining conspiracies. Maybe she needs space from us to calm down. Vivian backed away from the doorway, stunned. Her mother was rewriting reality again. That night, Vivian opened her laptop and began researching legal name changes. She read through requirements, fees and timelines. If her family wanted distance, she would give them exactly that. She remembered something her grandfather had mentioned years earlier. A trust fund set aside for her education which she would gain access to upon graduation. The next morning she called his lawyer in Florida. "Congratulations, Vivian," the lawyer said. "The trust is officially yours now." The funds were substantial. Enough for her to move, start fresh and support herself while building a new life far away from Delaware. By the end of the week she had packed her belongings and quietly left the house. She bought a one-way ticket to Oregon and began searching for apartments and job opportunities. 3 months later she stood in a Portland courthouse, signing paperwork that officially changed her name to Vivian Morris. "Congratulations," the judge said warmly. "New beginnings deserve new names." Vivian chose Morris because it meant strength in Old English, something she felt she had gained on her own. She left the courthouse feeling lighter than she had in years, finally stepping into a world where she belonged. Vivian's new apartment overlooked the Willamette River from the 15th floor of a modern building in the Pearl District. With her trust fund and careful budgeting, she secured a comfortable start. Soon after, she landed a job as a junior marketing coordinator at a sustainable technology company called Green Future Innovations. During her interview, the hiring manager, a woman named Julia Hale, smiled as she reviewed Vivian's portfolio. "Your academic record is excellent," Julia said. "And your thesis on sustainable consumer habits shows strong analytical thinking." Vivian felt something she hadn't felt in years. Her hard work was finally being valued. Vivian's first day at the company felt like stepping into another universe. Her co-workers welcomed her warmly, asking about her ideas and experiences. When she shared suggestions during team meetings, people listened, truly listened. Her supervisor, Daniel Lee, smiled after hearing one of her proposals. "Vivian, that's a smart angle. Could you put that into a presentation for next week?" She nodded, feeling her chest fill with something unfamiliar yet comforting: respect. For the first time, her success wasn't treated like a burden or a threat. She was valued, appreciated, and seen for who she truly was. Over time, Vivian settled into her new life. Her apartment building was full of friendly young professionals, including her next-door neighbor, Carla, a third-grade teacher with a warm personality. Carla brought homemade cookies to welcome her. "Starting over can be lonely," she said gently. "If you ever need company or help, I'm right next door." Vivian smiled gratefully, surprised by Carla's kindness. Soon the two women formed an easy friendship. They talked about work, dreams, and fears, conversations Vivian could never have had at home. With Carla, she felt supported, not criticized. It was the first glimpse of what healthy friendship looked like. As weeks passed, Vivian realized something deeper. She had been conditioned to shrink her accomplishments. At work, whenever she shared a good idea, she would quickly add, "It's nothing big," or, "I'm not trying to brag." One afternoon, after Vivian apologized for presenting a strong proposal, Carla stared at her in disbelief. "Vivian, why are you apologizing for being good at your job?" she asked. "Success isn't something to hide. You should celebrate it." The words hit Vivian hard. She had never been encouraged like that before. Carla's support made her see how deeply her family's criticism had shaped her. 2 months into her new job, something incredible happened. Vivian received her first promotion. She became a marketing specialist with a generous salary increase. When she told Carla, her friend insisted on taking her out for pasta to celebrate. "You earned this," Carla said firmly, raising her glass. "Stop acting like you don't deserve good things." Vivian felt tears prick her eyes. 4 years she had waited for her family to celebrate her achievements. Instead, a near stranger had shown more support in 2 months than they had in 22 years. It was both beautiful and heartbreaking. By autumn, Vivian had begun building a life she never thought possible. She excelled at work, formed meaningful friendships, and discovered the peace of living without constant judgment. She hadn't contacted her family since leaving Delaware, and they hadn't contacted her. At first, the silence hurt deeply, but eventually it became comforting. She realized their absence was not a loss, it was freedom. Then one rainy November evening, her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown Delaware number. She almost ignored it, but a feeling tugged at her. She answered, and froze when she heard the voice on the other end. "Vivian? Oh, thank God I found you. It was Nathan, sounding breathless and panicked. Vivian's heart raced. Nathan? How did you get this number? I hired someone to find you through your alumni records, he said quickly. Something terrible has happened. Vivian sank onto her couch. What's wrong? Nathan swallowed loudly. Dad's been arrested. Vivian felt the air leave her lungs. Arrested for what? For embezzlement, Nathan said shakily. The FBI came to the house. They took everything, computers, files, everything. Mom's barely functioning, Megan's freaking out, and the lawyers say he could go to prison for 10 years. Vivian, we need you. Vivian closed her eyes. Why do you need me? Nathan hesitated. We need help with legal fees. Mom and Megan don't know what to do. Vivian exhaled slowly. Nathan, I'm not coming back to Delaware. And I'm not helping pay for Dad's crimes. Nathan's voice cracked. But your family. Vivian's tone softened. Family celebrates your achievements. Family doesn't hide your awards in the attic or skip your graduation. Family doesn't call you self-absorbed because you worked hard. There was silence until Nathan whispered, You found the box? Vivian asked quietly, How long have you known everything they hid from me? Nathan sighed. I knew about some of it. Mom always said you already got enough attention, so displaying your awards would make you arrogant. Vivian felt her stomach twist. And the Harvard letter? Nathan hesitated. She said it would only distract you from staying close to family. Vivian nodded sadly, seeing the pattern clearly now. Nathan, I'm sorry about Dad, but I won't return to the life that destroyed me. Nathan's voice broke. Please. They need you. Vivian shook her head even though he couldn't see her. They needed me when I was begging for support. Now I need peace. Vivian hung up after a few minutes, shaken but certain of her decision. She called Carla, asking if she could come over. Within minutes, Carla showed up with warm tea and open arms. Tell me everything, she said softly. Vivian explained the entire phone call. Her father's arrest, her family's desperation, and the pressure to return. Carla listened with empathy. Vivian, going back might undo all the healing you've done, she said. Ask yourself one question. Would helping them now be healthy for you? Vivian stared into her cup, realizing she already knew the answer. She wasn't ready to be hurt again. That night, Vivian lay awake thinking about her old life and her new one. She knew she couldn't return to Delaware, but she also knew her family's crisis wasn't over. She decided she would keep her distance while monitoring the situation from afar. If things changed drastically, she would decide then whether she needed to intervene. What she didn't expect, however, was that within 6 months, she would gain enough power to influence her family's future completely. In ways she couldn't yet imagine, the girl they dismissed would soon become the woman they could no longer ignore. As winter melted into spring, Vivian's life continued to blossom. She earned another promotion, this time to senior marketing specialist, with a significant salary increase. Her creative work on sustainable outreach campaigns caught the attention of Green Futures executives, and she was selected for a leadership development program. Meanwhile, Vivian quietly monitored Delaware news. What she discovered was far more alarming than Nathan had revealed. Her father had been running a complex embezzlement scheme for over 5 years, involving shell companies and fraudulent invoices. The total stolen amount exceeded $800,000. And the consequences were spiraling far beyond financial trouble. Vivian soon discovered that her father's crimes had harmed real people. One of the buildings his company worked on, a low-income housing complex, had partially collapsed due to cheap materials he approved. Several elderly residents were injured and lawsuits were piling up. Meanwhile, her mother had been fired from the hospital after supervisors discovered documentation errors related to patient medications. When confronted, her mother admitted to struggling with alcohol addiction. Megan had dropped out of school because her parents could no longer support her. Nathan worked 2 jobs, juggling groceries and rent. Their entire world was falling apart and desperation was rising. But what disturbed Vivian most was discovering how her family spoke about her. Through acquaintances online, she learned they claimed she had suffered a mental breakdown after graduation and vanished. They even used her achievements to ask for money from their church, pretending she had been in a car accident. Vivian hired a private investigator who uncovered even more shocking information. Her parents had opened credit cards in her former name and accumulated over $30,000 in debt. Worse yet, they had filed a missing person report, calling her unstable. Vivian realized they had never stopped trying to control her life. With detailed evidence gathered, Vivian contacted Nathan through a secure email. During a call from a public phone, she revealed everything she had learned. "They're committing identity theft and fraud," she said. "These are felonies, Nathan." He sounded defeated. "I didn't know, Vivian. I swear I didn't. But I'll help you if you need me to." Vivian took a deep breath. "I'm not trying to ruin them. I just need to protect myself. But if they don't stop, I will take legal action." Nathan agreed to gather documents from their home, anything that proved their ongoing manipulation. Meanwhile, Vivian's success in Portland grew rapidly. She earned a fast-track promotion to regional marketing coordinator and spoke at sustainability conferences. She also began dating Ethan, an eco-friendly architect with a gentle spirit and genuine respect for her achievements. Ethan admired the strength she carried and celebrated her victories as if they were his own. With him, Vivian felt a warmth she had never known within her family, a love that lifted rather than diminished. Her life was full, her confidence restored, and for the first time, she understood how deeply her family's resentment had once limited her sense of self. 2 weeks later, Nathan called again. "Vivian, it's worse than we thought. Mom and Dad are trying to get legal control of your trust fund. They forged documents claiming you're mentally unfit." Vivian felt anger rise in her chest. "So they want power over money they didn't earn?" Nathan continued shakily. "They even hired someone to investigate you. Someone pretended to be your friend to learn more about your life." Vivian closed her eyes, realizing her newfound peace had been quietly invaded. "Nathan," she said slowly, "it's time I stop running and take full control of this situation." Vivian returned to Delaware quietly, not as the broken young woman her family expected, but as a successful executive prepared to defend her future. She purchased their foreclosed home under a business entity and acquired the remaining assets of her father's company. Days later, she stood in their living room, calm, composed, and powerful. Her family stared at her in disbelief. "What are you doing here?" her father asked weakly. Vivian opened her briefcase. "I'm here because your actions have consequences. And because you crossed a line you can never cross again." Their expressions shifted from confusion to fear. She laid down documents showing their fraudulent credit cards, the false missing person report, the forged signatures, and their attempts to access her trust fund. "I have every right to file charges," she said. "Identity theft, fraud, defamation, enough to put both of you in prison." Her mother trembled. "Vivian, we were desperate." "Desperation doesn't excuse destruction," Vivian replied. She then revealed her final decision. "I'm not pressing charges yet. But you will sign legal agreements ending all attempts to use my name, reputation, or identity. You will attend counseling, repay what you stole, and never contact me without permission." Her family stared at her, stunned by her resolve. Megan began crying softly. Nathan looked relieved, understanding Vivian was offering a path forward rather than revenge. Her father's shoulders slumped. "We'll sign," he whispered, knowing he had no leverage left. Vivian nodded. "This is the only way any of you avoid prison." They all signed the agreement that day in front of a notary. As Vivian walked out of the house, now legally hers, she felt no triumph, only closure. For once, she had protected herself instead of waiting for her family to care enough to do it for her. Vivian returned to Portland with a lighter heart. She focused on her career, her friendships, and her growing relationship with Ethan. Over the months that followed, she watched from afar as her family slowly rebuilt their lives within the boundaries she set. Nathan made progress, taking responsibility for his future. Her mother entered rehabilitation. Megan returned to school. Vivian didn't involve herself in their dynamics anymore, but knowing they had stopped harming her brought peace. She realized healing wasn't about forgetting, it was about choosing herself, even when the world expected her to sacrifice her happiness for others. Years later, Vivian stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing Portland skyline, feeling proud of the life she had built. Ethan wrapped his arms around her, whispering, "You've come so far." Vivian smiled softly. "I became who I always was meant to be." She no longer felt the ache of her past, only gratitude for the strength it pushed her to find. Vivian had walked away from a family that refused to value her, and in doing so she created a life filled with love, respect, and purpose. She finally understood the truth. Sometimes choosing yourself is the beginning of everything.